Hey Terry, welcome to the Easy Robot community. I thought I'd give you a video reply to your video post. I thought all your questions were great. And first off, I've been following your work and your community at Input Inc. for a number of years. I'd say many others on the community have as well. The work you guys have been doing is awesome, bringing Johnny 5 to life. So it's really exciting to have you on the community board and seeing you get an EZB and seeing you apply it to Johnny 5. It's really exciting to see that. So welcome to the community. And your biggest question is, can an EZB be used to control your Johnny 5? And I think the answer is definitely yes. It can be, and I think you'll be really happy with it. I think you guys will really like it. But of course, diving into your questions, a lot of your questions revolved around Wi-Fi. I think that was a big concern. A lot of questions because it was kind of probably a departure from some other things that you've thought about for controlling a robot. So that's makes sense that you had a lot of questions about that when you think about getting your feet wet with the Easy Builder and the EZB and using that, and how that's all going to play with your with your Johnny 5 robot, because you've invested a lot of hardware and a lot of money into that, and you want to make sure it's going to control it and play nice and work well, and it will. You're just looking to learn some things about the product and how it's going to work and integrate into your robot. So your questions are really good ones, I think. So another community member, he already answered some of your questions. One question that you brought up was about security, and he answered you. I won't recover his answer, Alan's answer here about security, but his answer is assuming that you put the device into client mode. We'll talk about client mode versus AP mode on the EZB, because I don't think Alan covered that in great detail, but that's something that the learn section covers. So I'll show you that. But assuming that you have the device in client mode, then the security is on the side of your Wi-Fi network, meaning like your Wi-Fi router. Assuming it's secure, then your devices are going to be secure. I think that's what Alan was describing. And then a question that you had was about daisy chaining in regards to your question was, could you Wi-Fi connect to one EZB and then have that EZB daisy chained, like wired connected somehow, daisy chained to a whole bunch of other EZBs or IO Tinies, connect that way? And Alan answered you that no, daisy chaining won't work that way, that you need to make individual connections. Then another question that you had was about adding additional servo controls rather than just utilizing the individual ports that are on the EZB or the IO Tiny. Can you add another like a servo controller? And Alan explained that in the Easy Builder software there is a serial servo controller board that is already supported. One suggestion that he offered was to kind of introduce yourself to the Easy Robot product, was perhaps if you have the budget, to buy one of the kits, like maybe the Rolly kit, to use as a test bed, to get you acquainted to the different features and stuff. I think Alan's advice is good there. My advice would be a little bit different, just because I think you guys have a pretty high skill set. What you've been doing with building the Johnny 5s, I think you guys have a high skill set. I think you're highly technical. I think you're just looking to get your feet wet with the EZB. So, you know, I don't know that buying one of the Easy robots itself is necessarily what you guys would want to do. I don't discourage that at all by any means. I highly encourage that for anyone, but you know, just that my advice would be a little bit different. I think since you already have the EZB controller, you already have, you know, one or two of them. Probably once you know, connect it up to your Wi-Fi, make a connection, control a couple of servos, things are going to start to click, and it'll come together for you, and you'll start to learn the interface, and you'll learn how stuff works really quickly, and you'll learn the different features in Easy Builder, and it'll all come together really quickly. Let's go to the Learn section of the website. So we've talked about this before. There's several sections here that Easy Robot has built up. The one that I recommend for you and probably your team is going to be the EZB V4 and IO Tiny. This section here, view the courses here, and these first few, these are going to be, especially these first 9 here, these are going to be they're going to be geared towards do-it-yourselfers. And really, you know, all these courses would be great if you can go through them as you have time. But of course, these are going to teach you all the stuff, you know, like line following and, you know, a bunch of stuff like easy scripting. As you get into stuff, you know, you'll want to do the easy scripting. You'll want to learn about controls. You'll want to learn what virtual desktops are, what the servo controls are. You know, these are going to be great videos for you to go to. And they're really short too, so you can go through them at your own pace, and they'll relate to things that you want to learn. But these first 9 here, just getting started with your kit, even if you don't have a full development kit, just learning about the EZB itself and learning about the different Wi-Fi modes in particular is going to be very helpful to you. So with those Wi-Fi modes, the default mode is called the access point mode, the AP mode. So if you, and what that means is you have a direct connect to that EZB module, meaning that if you take your laptop and you power on your EZB module, and you take your laptop and you search for a Wi-Fi connection, it should detect that EZB module, and then you can say connect to it like it's an access point, and then you're directly connected to it, and then from there then you can connect to it in Easy Builder, and then from there control things and, you know, do whatever. So it's a direct connect from like your laptop to the EZB. So that works great if you're just connecting to one EZB and that works great too with the EZB robots. Like I have a JD, I keep it in AP mode because I'm just connecting to the one controller. I don't have a robot that has multiple controllers in it, so that works well for that. Now, if I had a robot like your J5 and I had potentially multiple controllers in it, and if my goal was to not have a computer in it, if I did not want to have a computer in that J5 robot, and I wanted to keep that like a totally Wi-Fi, you know, J5 robot, you wouldn't want to keep every one of those modules as an access point module. You would probably want to set up the modules eventually in a client mode. So for testing, you know, when you're just starting to test and play around, you don't have to, you know, I don't want to make it seem like, I don't want to give you the impression that if you don't start off right away in client mode that you're missing something. This is just for, you know, as you learn and grow and you start adding multiple devices, this will probably what you will move to is client mode. So it's a setting that you'll connect to your EZB device and you'll make some setting changes. The directions will walk you through it. It's not that hard. And what it'll do is, instead of connecting from your laptop or device directly to the module, your device will then connect to your Wi-Fi router. So consider it like this: like in your home, you've got your internet coming in, and then it goes to a Wi-Fi router, which gives you Wi-Fi in your home, right? And then from there you have your laptop, like maybe in your garage, and you've got Wi-Fi access to it from there, right? So it would work the same way, just like the little diagram shows here. Laptop has Wi-Fi going to your wireless router. It would work the same way with your EZB going to a wireless router. So okay, you think to yourself, well, all right, fair enough, that's how it would work in my home. How is this going to work in my Johnny 5, to complete this whole robot? Let's say I have 4 or 5 modules, or 2 or 3 or whatever, however many I need in my Johnny 5 robot. How am I gonna make this work so that way it's one unified Wi-Fi system? Well, probably what would be the easiest thing to do, and what a few other people have done with their robots, is they'll buy a small Wi-Fi hub, a small Wi-Fi, little tiny Wi-Fi router that you can power off of 5 volts or something, and have that permanently mounted inside your Johnny 5. And then your Johnny 5 would have its own little Wi-Fi router, and then your devices would be synced up with it, and that Wi-Fi router would have its own security. And then what you would do is your laptop would connect to that little Wi-Fi router, and you'd make a secure connection that way. Now, another Wi-Fi question that you had was related to will the Wi-Fi of these devices interfere with each other? Will the Wi-Fi of this module, if there's another module next to it, are they going to interfere with each other? And the answer is no, they won't. That's not how Wi-Fi would work. They're not gonna interfere with each other. They're not gonna talk over each other in terms of canceling each other out. But I think part of what your question might be also is let's imagine a scenario where you said you've got several Johnny 5s, full-size Johnny 5s at a convention, and each one of them is set up as for Wi-Fi. And then you've got a scenario where you've got several of these devices all close together. It's not that they're going to interfere with each other, but how do you know whose is whose? Now that could become a problem. And the directions here talk about that. Because you can change the name of your Wi-Fi device. Because by default, the EZB module comes with a name. It'll come with a default name, like EZB blah blah blah. It'll have a whole bunch of numbers and whatever. It'll come with a default name. So each device will have a default name, but you can give it a specific name. So you could name yours, Terry's J5, and if it was the module in the head, you could name it Terry's J5 head. And if it was the module in the body, you can name it Terry's J5 body. And then that way you know what each one of your modules is. Whatever naming convention makes sense to you, you could rename those modules. So then that way, as you want to connect to them, if they're embedded in your robot, it'll make it easier to connect to them, rather than trying to remember, oh goodness, what's the default name of this device, that's buried perhaps deep in the somewhere in the robot's head somewhere, and you've forgotten what the default name was. You can set it to a name that makes sense. And something Alan corrected me on was that in a text reply, I previously stated that you could only control up to 5 instances, 5 different devices within EZBuilder. And Alan corrected me to let me know that you can now control up to 256 different devices. And I'll show you that, and I'll show you a couple of other things in EZBuilder. So this is a blank project, and this is the connection window. This is the default connection window that I was referring to, where you have by default boards 0 through 4. So that would be your default 5 boards. But if you needed to add more than that, you could go to Add, and then under General, and EZB Connections Plus, and then we can click on Add and continue adding, and this will be multiple EZB connections. And then under additional controls, like let's say I add a manual servo board, like a horizontal control. Under the little gear icon, the control, the settings, I can select the board index now, and because I've added 5 through 9, 5 through 9 now show up. But if I get rid of this, that should make those go away. And now it's back to 0 through 4. Another question that you had was about a failsafe, and something that you can do, like if you lose connectivity, like if your connection goes from connected to disconnect, one thing that you can do is in the settings for these, you have the ability to add a script that can do some different things for you. For one, whenever you do connect, you can initialize. You can have a script initialize. You can kick off different functions. You could have it, once you make a connection, you could have the robot take certain actions, but you can also have it monitor the connection string too. You can have it look for if connection is active or if the connection is not active. If connected equals true, or if it's not true, then you could act on that. Like you could try to reestablish the connection. So there's some things that you can do in there to try to mitigate a lost connection. And then you also asked about like range. What's the range of the device? And as you said, it would be equal to the range of your wireless network, of your wireless antenna. You also asked if you could have multiple cameras, and you can. It's as easy as adding, we added one camera control, and I'll add another camera control. So this would be assuming that you have at least 2 different boards, either EZBs or IoTiny, and then assuming both of those had cameras. Or also remember too, it can connect to PC cameras as well. Any camera devices that are connected to your computer, EZBuilder should be able to detect those as well. So if you have webcams or anything like that, EZBuilder can bring those up as well. And you can add more camera devices if you need to. Now you also asked a question about the camera lens itself, or about the camera eye, about separating the camera, like the camera sensor part from the board, and if you could extend that. That one I don't know. That's kind of a real specific question. That one I would if I were you, I'd pose that one on a different thread all by itself, and ask that in like a maybe a text slash video question, just as a small snippet question all by itself. There's a couple of different community members that I know that have dissected the camera pretty well, and there's the EZ robot engineer Jeremy that is really good at answering technical questions. He might be able to contribute some thoughts to your question on that as well. But I would, like I said, I would ask that in a different, I would make that one a specific thread, so that way other members can add their thoughts to that one, because that's a good question just in and of itself, how to break down the camera eye. And then circling back to your question on the multiple servos, if we go to the servo tab, then we can see here's the serial servo controller that we already have the built-in support for. You also asked about a repeater, being able to use like an EZB and then have a repeater to connect to your Wi-Fi. With that, no, a repeater wouldn't be used to repeat from your EZB out to a Wi-Fi device either. You wouldn't go from your EZB to a repeater. A repeater would be part of your Wi-Fi network. So if you have your EZB in client mode, like we talked about before, if you have a Wi-Fi repeater that's part of your overall Wi-Fi network, that might be something you utilize there to extend your Wi-Fi network. And then you did mention servo power, and that's something I want to mention as well, because servo power is something that bites new members sometimes, because they don't appreciate the fact that those 24 digital pins are not power regulated. They don't always observe in the documentation that they are not power regulated. So when you apply power, whatever power you apply, like if you apply like a 7.4 volt lithium battery to power your EZB, then 7.4 volts is what's going to go out on those digital ports. And if the servo you connect, or whatever device you connect to it, is not going to tolerate the 7.4 volts, then you're going to damage your device. A good example of that is like the sonar control, right? Sonar sensor is going to be wanting to run it at 5 volts. So you would need a power regulator with that, which is what comes with if you buy the sonar unit from EZ Robot, it comes with a regulator, or you can get a regulator separately. But of course, you can roll your own 5 volt regulators. I'm just mentioning that. And you mentioned that your servos, you would probably, use your own power regulators, because you've got different servos rated for different things. Some are rated for 7.4, some at 5, some less than 5 volts. So I wanted to mention that. Be careful with whatever you feed into that. Just be mindful of that, because like I said, that's something that bites a lot of folks when they first start experimenting, and then all of a sudden they lose a servo or two before they appreciate that fact. And then another question that you had was on the power of your laptop, like what kind of quality of laptop should you have? And from Easy Robot's software page, down at the bottom, they do have minimum operating system requirements for their Windows laptop. Is if you already have a system, see how it works, as long as it kind of meets those requirements. And even if it doesn't, like, I know that they recommend 6 gigs RAM minimum, but I run it on systems that don't have that minimum, and I get by. Can't wait to see what other questions you have, and if we can help you in any other way, let us know, Terry. Take care.